father and his father-in-law and his wives and his children. And family just wasn't a good thing for Jacob. And I understand the whole Esau and Jacob tension. My brother and I are 2 years and about 4 months apart. And we fought probably constantly from the time he was born until I left the house. My younger brother and I, we competed all through our growing up years. It wasn't friendly. Sledding, which we did Wednesday night with the teens. I was thinking back, my brother and I used to go down the back hill. We had the best one in Rome. Lots of kids came over. But he and I, when we went down, we would have sled fights. We'd try to reach under the other guy's sled and flip him. And fighting, we decked each other. One time we got a real wise idea. We each stood on the opposite sides of the driveway. And we said, let's have a rock fight, but no hitting in the head. So we made that rule going into it. And that lasted about a minute and a half. And one of us got too close to the other one's head, and pretty soon the rocks were flying like crazy, and anyway, it wasn't pretty. Arguing, we spoke with no mercy. I was a brutal arguer with him. All that animosity cost me, frankly. I wasn't in my brother's wedding. I watched it, I was there, but I wasn't one of his men. And I haven't been part of the weddings of his two oldest. My antagonism towards my brother has cost me a bit. Sad to say, that's something hopefully over the next few years we can deal with. Family can be the hardest part of life sometimes. It seems to have been for Jacob. Amazingly, God used Jacob's dysfunctional family to teach him some important lessons. Let's take a look at what he learned. First of all, Jacob learned about schemes. Have you ever thought, if only that jerk could get a taste of his own medicine? You ever looked at somebody and thought, boy, I wish he'll get his? Well, Esau must have been praying for it, because Jacob did get that happen to him, as he innocently watched the ravishing Rachel bring in the sheep for watering. He was hooked. Here in Genesis 29:10 and following, we see his reaction. When Jacob saw Rachel, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. This is their very first meeting. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah, so she ran and told her father. Now imagine this, young ladies, you're going about your business, you're bringing the flock in like everybody else does, and all of a sudden this guy comes up to you that you've never met before. He says he's your cousin. He breaks the rule about waiting until all the herds are there, waters the sheep, and then he breaks down crying, oh, Rachel, and he gives you a smooch. It's like, what is the matter with this guy? Yes, you start sounding the rape whistle or something. What is wrong with this dude? But Jacob was hooked. This was the girl for him. In fact, he's so hooked, he pledges to work for 7 years to earn the right to marry Rachel. Wow. Isn't that romantic? I'll work for 7 years just so I can marry Rachel. He was hooked. Dear Uncle Laban, once that 7 years is up, puts together a wedding party for his future son-in-law. Then when Jacob is tired, drunk, and susceptible, sister Leah is switched in for Rachel. A bait and switch con, they call it. Sound familiar? This is how Jacob got Esau's blessing. The very same thing. He brought the food that Isaac wanted, and he went in disguise, made like he was Esau, and he stole his brother's blessing. And now this very same thing has been done to him. Instead of the ravishing Rachel, he found the not quite as lovely Leah in bed with him in the morning. Jacob got schooled. However, there was a price for Uncle Laban for all his scheming. We read about it. Oh, I forgot the romantic part. Sorry, ladies. Well, Valentine's Day is coming. I should have got this. served 7 years. They only seemed like a few days to him. Wow. I bet Chuck says that to Betty all the time. Our marriage, it seems like a few days for how much I love you.
Sometimes.
Here's what Laban said when Jacob found Leah there. He said, "It's not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one." Hit Jacob right between the eyes, right? Because he had jumped into his older brother's position, took his place in the family and his blessing, and now those very words are coming back to haunt him from his uncle Laban. Now, here's how the daughters of Laban described their relationship with their dad. After all the monkey business Dad did with one daughter and the other and all that business. They say of their dad, "Does he not regard us as foreigners? Not only has he sold us, but he has used up what was paid for us." That's not the sign of a healthy relationship between a dad and his daughters. Monkey business in a family hurts. And those hurts don't go away because this whole selling the daughters thing took place 20 years prior to when they made this statement. We have to be careful how we treat each other in a family. Scheming doesn't work. Well, not only did he learn that scheming doesn't work, God taught Jacob that he has the power over scheming. I noticed something this time in studying these chapters that I hadn't noticed before. You'll remember that after the 14 years is up, he served 7 for Rachel and didn't get her, so he had to serve another 7 for Rachel. Jacob says, "I want out of here. I've paid for my wives, got my children, I want to go home." And Laban says, "Well, the Lord has been blessing me because of you. I would really like you to stay. So you name your price. What should your wages be?" And Jacob kind of makes a crazy deal here. In Israel, even to this day, the sheep and the goats and the donkeys that are dominant are the ones that are pure white or pure black. It's just like us brown-eyed people. We're the dominant eye color. There's more of us around. And the sheep and the goats that were rare were the ones that had spots or streaks or some kind of markings on them that weren't pure. Now Jacob says to Laban, "Listen, here's the deal. Here's what I want. I'll go through your herds today and I'll take out all of just those few spotted, striped, and streaked critters. And that way, whenever you look at my herds, you'll be able to tell whether I'm cheating you or not, because all of my sheep and goats and such will be marked." Well, Laban beat him to it. Laban went through and took out all of those kind of critters and gave them to his sons and moved the herds off. So Laban wasn't going to be one-upped. He made sure Jacob started out with absolutely zero. Why did Jacob make such a lousy sounding deal? This is what it says, and it's in chapter 31, I believe, of Genesis. He says, "I had this dream, and in this dream God said, 'Look and see that all the male goats mating with the flock are streaked, speckled, or spotted. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you.'" So what I'm thinking is just before Laban made this deal, God appeared to Jacob in a dream and said, "Laban's going to try to rip you off again. I've seen all that he's doing. But go ahead and pick these rare animals because I'm going to do something amazing. And it's described there. All of those critters were gone. All Jacob had to look after were the pure ones. And yet they kept throwing spotted and streaked and marked animals. And it also tells us Laban kept changing his wages. Well, you're getting a bunch of spotted ones. Well, I want the spotted ones now. They've got to be streaked for you to keep them. That didn't bother God. The next ones were streaked. Oh, you've got a streak now? Yeah, those look pretty good. I'll take those. I would like you to have, whatever. The ones with circles on them. The one with stars on them. It says he changed his wages 10 times over the period of 6 years. Didn't bother God a bit. God kept building his flocks up so that by the time Jacob got ready to leave, he had all the strongest out of Laban's herds. Finally, Jacob made his move. It had been gone 20 years. He now had 13 kids at this point, or 12 kids. All kinds of flocks and herds, and he says, let's go. Let's get out of here. The wives say, okay, let's do it. So he runs for it. He gets a 3-day head start, and it takes Laban another 7 days to catch up. And just before Laban is about to catch up, God appears to Laban. Says, be careful. Listen to what this guy has to say. Don't harm him. God is able to deal with schemes and plans in a family, even to the point of keeping people from getting hurt, if those people have learned to love God. Speaking of love, God taught Jacob about love. Now, he really loved Rachel, but he ended up with Leah. Leah was his first wife. You remember back to creation. It was supposed to be one man and one woman for life. And that one woman was now supposed to be Leah. But Leah was not loved. And here's a little verse that popped out to me this time. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he enabled her to conceive. God wanted a loving relationship between Jacob and Leah, the one man, one woman for life. And so he enabled her to have children. That was the relationship that he deeply desired to put children into. And she ended up having 6 boys and a girl. She had 7 out of the finally 13 kids that Jacob would have in 6 out of the 12 tribes. God was sending a message there to Jacob. Hey, I want you to love Leah. She's your first wife and she should be loved. I'm fascinated too by the names that Leah gave to her children. Reuben means he sees. Simeon, he hears. Levi, he is attached. Judah, praise. Gad, good fortune. I like that name. Hey, good fortune, come on in here, buddy. How could you say that guy's name and feel bad about him? You know, good fortune. Asher, there's another good one. Hey, Happy, come on in here. We need some cheering up. Issachar, reward. Leah gave such positive names to her children. She was a loving, caring mom. Zebulun, hard to say, but great meaning, honor. Now what about Rachel? Dan, he has vindicated. There's a name for you. He vindicated, get in here. Naphtali, my struggle. Hey, my struggle. Quit making me struggle. And Joseph, may he add to me another son. Can you imagine Joseph? Now we're going to get upset with Joseph in a little while because it's going to seem like he's the favored son. But whenever he hears the story behind his name, he's going to hear, yeah, God finally gave me a son and I wanted him to give me one more. What's that going to say to poor old Joseph? Well, you weren't enough. Rachel had some real issues as a mom. I really do, from the names that she gave to her children. Leah might have been the better one all along. God also taught Jacob love when he reunites with Esau. We looked at it this morning. You remember Esau was murderously angry. That's why Jacob had to leave and run for it. He thought that Esau was going to kill him. But over that 20 years, God had done a work in Esau so that when he saw his brother, all he could do was receive him with love. Hugged him, kissed him, called him brother, said, don't give me gifts, keep them. He wasn't looking to get anything out of Jacob. God had done a work in him over those 20 years that so Jacob could understand brotherly love when it came to him. Jacob wasn't dumb. He sent some scouts on ahead when we came to your brother Esau and saw he is coming to meet you and 400 men are with him. Jacob panicked. He came up with all kinds of plans at this point because he didn't realize what God had done in Esau's life. He divided them up into 2 camps. He made sure that the slave women's kids went first. How would you feel if you were one of those slave women's kids, huh? Great, I'm going to the bad guy first. He even resorted to praying and asking God to help him. But Esau ran to Jacob, embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. God had already taken care of the situation. God wants love and healing in our relationships, in our family. Well, he taught Jacob about schemes, he taught Jacob about love, and he taught Jacob about faith. Faith brings family. Leah went through the first round of kids, which those were the first 4 sons. Then she stopped having kids. And you might remember then Rachel says, marry my maidservant, and had some kids. And then Leah says, marry my maidservant, and had some kids. What a mess of a family. I've never watched, was it Sister Brides? The show that's on where the guy is married, was it 3 sisters, 4 sisters? I saw a headline though as I was researching this. He divorced the sister he has been married to legally so he could marry the youngest sister who is now expecting a child. Did he trade the old model in for a new one? Or I don't know, he's got them all in the garage. It's a mess. Not a show I'd recommend you watching at all. But here's poor Jacob. He's in the middle of that. And Jacob, like the rest of the men, didn't know how to say no. No, I don't want to do that. Well, it came to a point where Leah said, you know, I need to get back into having kids here. And here's a verse that popped out. God listened to Leah, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a 5th son. If God is listening to Leah, Leah's talking to God. She's learned to go to God with her needs. It's interesting. This story occurs at a crazy point that we don't understand nowadays. Her oldest son, Reuben, went out and found something called a mandrake plant out in the wheat field, and he brought it into his mother. And Rachel was so desperate to have kids, she said, let me have this mandrake. This is kind of what they look like. I don't know, they have long roots up to 4 feet long, and their roots kind of look like people. You can see this one, and it kind of branches off in 4 and kind of looks like a person. And they were thought that if you put them under the bed, or some people ground them up and and drank a little bit of the powder. They're actually kind of deadly. They're related to nightshade, so you don't want to drink too much. But it was a superstition back then that if you had a mandrake around, you'd have a kid. So Leah said, okay, I will trade you the mandrake if I can have some quality time with Jacob in return. And it was right then that she prayed, Lord, help me to have another kid. And this is when the fifth kid came along. What did Leah learn from that? Praying to God is more valuable than superstition. The mandrake didn't work for Rachel. She didn't have any kids out of it. But praying to God worked for Leah. Finally, just before Joseph is conceived, again, see that phrase? He listened to her. Rachel finally gave up on superstition and I'll put somebody in as a surrogate mom and I'll try all this other stuff. She finally turned to God in prayer, which is what God had been waiting for all along, and God enabled her to conceive. And Joseph was born. Faith brings family. Jacob could learn that from his wives. Faith brings protection from manipulation and danger. We saw that in the way that God intervened when Laban was trying to take advantage of him. God appeared to Jacob himself at key times to encourage faith. Jacob spent 20 years learning from God through family. Did his family come out perfect? Are you kidding? They have all kinds of struggles, and we're going to see more of them as the time goes by. But God was able to work through family, even a dysfunctional one, to teach some valuable lessons. Jacob looked back and he's praying to the Lord, and this is what he said: I am unworthy of all the kindness that you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two camps. Jacob could see in his family the blessings that God had put into his life. However, the damage that can be done in a family without a lot of work and a lot of turning to the Lord and his help doesn't go away. Here's Jacob when he meets Pharaoh, when they went down into Egypt. Remember, Joseph had been sold into slavery and he saved their lives. This is how he describes his life to Pharaoh. The years of my pilgrimage are 130. My years have been few and difficult. God had blessed him. God had worked with him. But there had been some damage done. In our Healing for Damaged Emotions class, we're looking at some of this stuff and realizing that if we don't deal with it at some point and allow God to work and to heal and to bring forgiveness and his grace into the damage that family has done, that we can miss out on all the salvation that he has for us because we can harbor unforgiveness that can just eat us up. Jacob learned some lessons, but there were more that he needed to learn. Not only do we have physical families, we also have spiritual families. One of the things that we do as a spiritual family is we gather around the Lord's table together. And we take communion, not only to just remember what Jesus has done for us, but also to remember that because of God's grace, we are brought together as brothers and sisters in the family of God.